age of reality TV. I am Willie Hassell along with Lynn Nickerson.
Hi.
And how are you doing tonight, Lynn?
Terrific. And yourself?
Terrific. I'm doing really good. Did you enjoy that thunderstorm?
Yeah, that was fun, Willie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I love thunderstorms. What can I say? And I hear that our guest does too. That's what he told me.
Ah.
That's what he told me. So I'm going to have to put my glasses on to introduce him.
Get nice and comfy and cozy. Go ahead.
Comfy and cozy? Okay. So tonight we want to welcome to the show Sam Baltrusis. Sam is the author of a number of books on local paranormal in the Boston, Cambridge, and Salem areas, and actually beyond that. He also teaches journalism classes at Malden Access TV. He has been featured as Boston's paranormal expert on Biography Channel's Haunted Encounters and on Paranormal State's Ryan Buell's Paranormal Insider Radio. He moonlights as a tour guide for Boston Haunts and Cambridge Haunts. In the past, he has worked for VH1, MTV, Newsweek, ABC Radio, and as a regional stringer for the New York Times.
That's quite
pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yes.
But tonight, he's here to talk about his latest series of books, The 13 Most Haunted. Welcome to the show, Sam Baltrusis. Welcome,
Hi,
Sam.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on the show.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for coming all the way up here to join us tonight.
I love it out here, it's great.
Yeah.
It was kind of a long commute for you though on the train.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was rainy, but we kind of drove through the rain, so that was good.
So how long did it take you?
About an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not too bad from
faster
Somerville.
than walking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, you could have had to walk in the rain.
Yeah, I could have walked here.
So I understand in addition to the 13 Most Haunted books, you also do a 13 Most Haunted documentary series?
Well, I do a radio show every
Yeah.
Friday nights. Actually, I'm working at SCAT TV, or Somerville Community Media. I'm on the board of directors there, and I do a radio show every Friday night. I am doing a documentary series coming up, and one of the places that I'm focusing on is the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast in Fall
Oh, no
River.
kidding. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
And there's a lot of, it's been covered so much in the press and the TV shows, and my goal is to have something new, if that's possible.
Well, I think you pointed out in your books that you do have some new things to ponder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like looking at it with a different lens, and like looking at it with a paranormal lens, but also with a contemporary lens, because I think it's been mulled over so much that maybe some
Yeah.
things have been lost in translation.
So how long would this documentary be?
Well, it's going to be 30 minutes, so it's going to be,
Okay.
it's going to focus on specific locations that I have been to for my books. So Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast, the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion, the USS Salem and Quincy. These are places that I wrote about, but I have sort of lingering questions still
Yeah.
associated with those locations.
Well, certainly that mystery was never really solved. The murders.
Oh,
were
I think we're never going to
solved.
figure out what happened
Yeah,
to
I
Lizzie
don't think so
Borden.
either.
I don't
What happened to her
think anybody
parents?
I
will
think
ever
we
really
can
know for sure.
heavily rely on psychic input. You know, even Ron Kolick, Maureen Wood, his
Yeah.
psychic medium, she had some information too that was very interesting. So everybody seems to have a little piece of the puzzle. We got to put it all together. Where are you going to show these documentaries? Is it going to be like on the internet or live? Or?
I just started working on the idea of it, and it's called New England Haunts, and it's probably going to be syndicated through public access. So
Oh, okay.
The goal is to, because I have been working for public access for a couple of years and I love it, and syndicated to local stations, and may even try to, and also do the internet as well.
Okay, so it's going to be its own format. It won't be on your other show, right?
Right, yeah, it's going to be
okay.
kind of a standalone
Yeah,
series.
Okay.
Well, we look forward to
We
that.
certainly do. That's going to be
Any
fun.
idea when that's going to be?
October.
Oh, October.
Yeah, I'll be working on them over the summer, and we'll see what happens.
Very good.
Well, this audience here in Haverhill is a little bit different than the audience we have for Spirit Radio, because Sam has already
Right.
been on our radio show. So what we wanted to do was maybe just give everybody a little bit of an idea of what your backstory is growing up and the paranormal experiences you had, like beginning with your grandfather, so to give people an idea of how it got started for you.
Yeah, so it's funny. Like, you actually read my books, so it's great. Like, she has like the little markers in the books, so she actually reads my books. So yeah, I talk a lot about my grandfather, my experience with my grandfather in my second book, Ghost of Cambridge. But I had my grandfather was definitely spiritually inclined, and he died when I was really young, and I had an encounter with him when I was a kid. And I feel like that he's been with me for most of my life. My grandmother has as well. I was one of the, like the kid from The Shining. I had experiences all the time, and specifically loved like family members. And my mother kind of just thought I was a creative kid, and I went most of my young adult life having experiences with ghosts, and then I put on paranormal blinders where I would have experiences, but I kind of shrugged them off, like they weren't actually paranormal. But I had a situation, I was working in New York City, and I was walking by the Washington Square Park, and I felt something grab my leg, and I thought it was like a homeless person, or I wasn't sure what it was, and I kept looking down. It happened twice.
And you were what, early 20s?
20s, yeah. And it happened twice, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I looked back on that, and I really didn't think of it in a paranormal sense. I thought there had to be some explanation. Like maybe I was having like a seizure. I don't know. I was thinking of some
or cramp
or something, like a cramp that felt like a hand grabbing my leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always do. I always say, well, there's got to be some reason for it.
But then the rest of the story is you later found out that Washington Square Park had been a graveyard. They had dumped many, many thousands of bodies there in New York City.
Yeah, like I didn't realize that. Like and that was kind of the beginnings of my interest, because I moved back to Boston in 2007. But knowing that, because I think I heard it on a television show that was a tuberculosis, like a dumping ground, and that kind of flashed, and I'm like, that's interesting. Maybe there's something paranormal to it, and I started writing articles because you mentioned that I was a journalist. I was writing articles, and I wrote an article for Stuff magazine that was a huge success, and that turned into my first book. So I've always kind of been interested in the paranormal, but I didn't really make it a career until I started writing Ghost to Boston, and it just clicked, and it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, well, it's not over yet, that's for sure.
I know.
Joni.
I was just going to say, how many books do you have out now?
I have 7 books altogether,
altogether.
and I have one in the works, and then I have a couple that I've started on, but I'm kind of holding on to release them at a certain point. One's on New York City. I just want to.
Good.
It's almost done, my New York City book, but I just felt like I needed to spend more time. Specifically, there's a mansion in Staten Island that I wanted to visit before I released this book. So.
Joni Mahan had mentioned that anybody who's psychic, we're kind of like a beacon, and they see it, and they try to get a hold of you to communicate in some way. So that's probably exactly what was going on.
Joni, because Joni and I have, we're kind of like the living kind of do that too. We latch on to each other.
Yes.
And like with Joni, I just kind of like, she was a beacon, and I kind of went right to her, and we connected very immediately.
Yeah.
And she's written the introduction to several of my books, and
That's
just a great
nice.
resource, a great friend to have in the paranormal world, because it can be really competitive sometimes.
It can, yeah.
And she's definitely not competitive, and she's been a really good friend.
It's very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, what Willie and I wanted to do, we wanted to try and cover 2 books. So Willie read one, the one on 13 Most Haunted Hotels.
Massachusetts.
All right. And then I read the one on...
Hotels isn't out yet, right?
Yeah. That's coming out next year.
What in Massachusetts?
Just the whole state.
Oh, okay. My bad, okay. And then I chose the 13 Most Haunted Crime Scenes Beyond Boston. So what we're going to do isn't that great? That's such a great cover.
That's a Frank Grace special there.
Oh, that is a great
beautiful photo.
That would be the Victorian, the Gardner Mansion. Right?
Yeah, Gardner Mansion.
So Willie and I are going to kind of alternate stories. We'll take one and I'll take another. So I wanted to start with, you've numbered your books from 13 down to 1, 1 being the last story, but being perhaps the most haunted or the most famous. How did you?
I did it, but I switched it up. So the crime scenes, I start with the least haunted and start with the most haunted.
13,
and then with the book that Willie read, the 13 Most Haunted, I start with the most haunted and go backwards. I think I like starting with the most haunted. I think. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next book.
Okay, well, so Lizzie Borden, the Lizzie Borden murder starts at the end of this book. So in case time grows short, I want to start at the beginning of the show with this because it's so interesting. And I don't want to give anything away for your documentary, but I thought there's some new information there that we should look at that people haven't considered. And a lot of it has to do with, like, you had sort of a precognitive dream about this location, and then you went there and you realized that you had dreamt about that place. And also, too, there are a couple of factual elements to the story. One that hadn't been discussed or that I hadn't heard before, and that was that Andrew Borden's uncle, he was married, and the woman wound up, I don't know if she killed the children or the children anyway got killed.
Well, there was a murder near the property that I feel like that people don't talk about, and I think it wasn't the exact location, and I think that maybe that's why people.
It wasn't adjacent.
It was close. It was
Okay.
like it was very close to the property, and I would like to dig more into that because
Yeah.
I think that it, well, you know, if you look back in the day, the property could have been several blocks.
Well, yeah, and it could have been divided up too, so that it might have been Borden property.
Yeah, and I think that that's the case. But there was definitely a matricide where the mother killed the children. So like I don't know what you call that, but.
Infanticide?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it
right.
is actually,
yeah,
yeah.
when a mother kills her children, and my theory, and this comes from my dream,
Yeah.
and I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't spent a lot of time in the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast, and this is why, is I think that I think there may have been a demonic entity. I think there are infestation there, or something evil, like an evil entity. And I'm really big about not saying everything has a demon. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I know they seem to jump to that conclusion for the TV shows in particular, so they can get, incite excitement and get more viewers. But not everything is demonic, no.
Well, having worked on television before, it's like they're like, can you find a demon? Like that's what they're wanting you to find it. In this situation, I think there may have been a negative entity, so maybe not demonic,
Yeah.
but something
Yeah.
evil. And in my dream, it was that basically it was pointed to me that it was Diablo or it was the devil.
Yeah, Diablo did it.
Diablo
And
did it.
What you cited was, it sounded like what you've read about, what we've all read about the murders where Andrew Borden walks into his, like, the middle sitting room area, and there's a sofa there, and he goes to sit down, and that's where he's hatcheted to death.
Yeah.
So that's a scene you see, and you see someone approaching, and then Andrew speaks to you in subtitles.
And subtitles, yeah.
Which was weird.
It was weird.
The Diablo did it. So I was thinking, I wonder if Lizzie had been referred to as Diablo or not. Maybe
That's possible.
Lizzie and Abby did not get along, but I thought she got along with her father, but who knows? We weren't in that household, Who knows?
Well, I'm really interested in looking at Lizzie's with a contemporary lens. I think I'm talking a lot with Lucky Belcamino, who's the official psychic of the bed and breakfast in Fall River. And Lucky, we strongly believe that Lizzie was a lesbian. So there may have been sort of affairs going on, maybe with Bridget, maybe with somebody else that she was
Yeah.
trying to hide. So there may have been something going on that she was trying to cover up.
Yeah.
That's one theory. There's another theory is that maybe she was possessed by something.
Yeah, so she could have done it. She could possibly have done it. And some people think that there was an accomplice, and it could have been Bridget, and Bridget Sullivan, who was the maid, of course. But it also increases the complexity because it sort of tends toward collusion.
Yeah.
That, yeah, maybe Bridget wanted Andrew Borden dead so that she could get part of Lizzie's inheritance. That would be a motive. There's so much to consider with this new information being introduced, with Bridget perhaps being part of the picture.
Well, I think it's been mentioned before in the past, so it's not necessarily new, but I think that it's been kind of like shrugged off as like, oh, this is not possible, and like maybe 20 years ago. I think there was a book that was written that had that theory.
There was a book written, I've got it.
Yeah, that Bridget and
Paperback.
Lizzie were having an affair, and then either Abigail or the father walked in, and that's what
That I
happened.
hadn't heard.
That was one theory, but I think that because it was so poorly written and not well researched, that maybe that was shrugged off. But maybe we should relook at it, like look at it
Yeah.
again.
Wasn't it Maureen Wood, Ron Kolik's psychic? Didn't she feel that there was a male involved in the murders?
Yeah, I get that a lot from psychics. I
yeah.
get a lot of that there was a male. There was a visitor that came in that we're not. It's still unsubstantiated.
That's right,
And
yeah.
I also feel that perhaps we should look at John Morse too.
Yeah.
And so there's so many factors that could play into what happened.
And John Morse was the brother to the stepwife, to Abby, right?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so.
I think
Yeah, and That is where the John Morse room and the bed and breakfast is where the actual the murder took place.
Yeah.
So I'm going back in July. I'm looking forward to revisiting the location. I had a dream recently that was not as insane as my Diablo did it dream, but I had a dream that I was pinned to the bed, and I'm not sure if it was the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion or if it was the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast, but I'm kind of scared to spend the night there.
Rightfully so. It's really creepy.
This was a recent dream, right?
It was a recent dream, and I woke up and I was like
Yeah,
terrified.
I saw that one on Facebook
Yeah.
a couple of
Oh
days
my
ago. yeah.
gosh. One of the odd things that happened, I did visit Lizzie Borden's house and went through the whole house, starting at the top. I felt nothing.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel anything until I hit the cellar stairs.
Yeah.
And when I got there, my legs felt like lead. And I had a hard time going down the stairs. I walked around and then I came right back up again. Only until I got to the first floor did it go away.
Yeah.
And I later found out that there have been apparitions of Lizzie or a woman going down the stairs, of course in 19th century dress, carrying bloodied clothing, going toward the furnace room.
Yeah.
And I had only heard that subsequent to that, so that's another.
Yeah, like there was bloody, like there was like menstrual that was kept in the basement, and I think, I think that the energy is
It's heavy.
it's a cellar dweller, and it could be a negative entity that's down there.
Yep, and I think that's what I picked up on.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to find out. I'm looking forward to watching that. see
But
what you uncover.
I agree with you, because a lot of people, like Joni, for example, Joni Mahan, she said that she didn't really feel much when she was there.
Isn't that funny?
And a lot of people that I trust say the same thing. But I have heard from those people when they go down to the basement, that's where they feel the energy.
Really? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good feedback.
I've never been to the Lizzie Borden house
Yeah,
myself.
it's really quite pretty, and they've done a nice job maintaining the integrity of the house and the style and decor of the period.
I'm just terrified to sleep there.
I don't know how you could.
Well, you don't go there to sleep, do you?
Well,
Well,
You know?
I am, because I guess I want to get the full experience. the
yeah,
Lizzie
but you don't
Borden-
want to have a heart attack either.
I don't want to have a heart attack.
You don't want to wake up with a heart attack. That's what I would do. So what was your story?
Well, I have, however, been to the S.K. Pierce Mansion
Oh, yes, you
several
have.
times
Yeah.
with other groups, and I did an investigation there myself one night. But what caught my attention about it was that apparently you've had a lot of experiences with dreams,
Yeah,
but you had a
Strange
dream, a recurring dream,
Oh, what
back
was
in
that?
about 2011, and you didn't know at the time. You had no idea where it was, right? It was.
I had no idea. Yeah.
It was in the dream, it was a gold-colored Victorian home,
Yep.
and it was a woman in her 20s, seemed sort of like a caretaker, and she was protecting the home and forces out of her control and losing the battle and looking for help. So it wasn't actually till several years later, correct, that you went to the mansion?
Yeah, so the dream was recurring. So there's two dreams that were in that book, and also, one was the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast. One was a unnamed mansion that I had no idea what it was. And it turns out that it's the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion. And she was also singing an Irish folk song.
Really?
Yeah. And I've connected with that spirit because I was terrified of that place too.
Yeah.
When I made that realization that that's the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion, and I hear from multiple people that Maddie Cornwell, who's the nanny, reached out to a lot of local psychics. And people that were sensitive to the paranormal. So I'm not surprised, because I've talked to other people who had similar dreams.
So apparently she was reaching out to you too.
She was.
And not only was she singing folk songs, she was throwing books and papers, and she kept saying what sounded like Sefnock
Yeah.
over and over again,
Sefnock?
which you later figured out what you thought that meant.
Yeah, so in the book, it's like the realization that it's confess, but it's confess backwards. But I'm not sure what she's saying. It's kind of like, it's like a jumbled phrase that she's saying. So think of like Twin Peaks and like the way they speak in Twin Peaks so it was really weird.
Just distorted?
It was distorted. And I couldn't figure out what she was trying to say. And then what I've gathered from this, like that was the first time I even wrote about the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion. I've been back. I'm friends with the people, the new owners. I'm friendly with like Mimi and Ken who work there and Marianne. So I have a really good relationship with the people that work there. So I know a lot of the backstory. Maddie supposedly crossed over, and Joni told me that Maddie crossed over, but we think she's still there. And I think there's unfinished business with Maddie that I'm going to investigate in the documentary.
So what do you think her problem is? Why is she there?
I want to save that because I'm not sure, but I think that there's unfinished business with her. I think that she may have had, and I brought a psychic there as well, and I connected with her in her room specifically, but there may have been a connection with her and Mr. Pierce. Okay. It may have been, she may have been pregnant, or she may have had unrequited love with one of the owners.
Yeah.
Or the owner.
She died pretty young, 25, was it?
Wow.
Yeah, well, she died very young, and the thing is, like, she just appears in a sense that then she disappears. Joni actually uncovered her death certificate, so and her bones in the basement. So there is a death certificate, but she died very young, and I personally I get a weird feeling that there was something else going on. So the dream, now I look back on it with sort of new eyes, is maybe it was Maddie that was saying confess, confess, or maybe it was the wife saying confess, confess, and the guy was crouching down in the dream. And I saw a silhouette, so I don't know if it was Maddie or if it was Susan or Ellen or like any of his wives that was kind of over on top of him. But I got, when I was there recently at the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion, I got what seemed like there was a muted conversation. When I say got, I mean like my psychic friend and I were there with like EVP players of quarters, and there was what seemed like there was a discussion with two women, and it may have been Maddie and the wife, or it could have been Maddie, or it could have been other women as well. Like there was reports of a prostitute that was murdered there. That's
right.
And there's no proof of that. We have no proof whatsoever that actually took place. I think it's more the people that we can substantiate that are the major players in that location.
The room that you dreamt of in the dream, how did that play into the actuality?
It freaked me out. It was the front of the house, and it's on the second floor, and I forget which room it was specifically. I think it was Edward Pierce's room.
Was it?
Yeah, and it was in the front. And that's where my psychic friends picked up the energy as well.
Floor on the left.
Facing the front, facing the front of the street. So it was on the second floor, looking down.
Yeah. No, I'm just wondering, is that the same room where Eno Savi?
Yeah. When Ken and Mimi have done renovations, and the location of Eno Sari, where he supposedly he definitely burned in his bed, but there was reports of spontaneous combustion, which did not happen. But he did burn kind of strangely in his bed, and it only was contained in the bed specifically.
Yeah, nothing else was burned.
But it does sound like spontaneous combustion, though.
It's weird, yeah. Well, he was smoking cigarettes, and then he was drinking whiskey in bed.
Oh.
And you can still feel him. There's a lot of sensitives pick him up at the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion. But what's interesting, when they did renovations, they found charred remains in a different room.
Charred human remains?
Oh no, not like wooden remains. So like there was a fire in that room.
I see.
So not human remains. That would be like a whole other book.
Yeah, that would be awful.
But yeah. So the charred. There was a different room that was what we thought was Eno Sari's room, and we're not. That's something I need to look into. Like what specifically was that room? But we got a lot of male energy in the room that I saw the confess in.
Yeah.
So what is the status of
I was just wondering if it was the same room.
Yeah, but it could have been. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
What's the status of the mansion now? Has it been sold or what?
Yeah. So Mr. and Mrs. Conti in New Jersey, they purchased it. They have done amazing work renovating it. And we were talking a little bit earlier about the Houghton Mansion, because that's currently on for sale as well. And I hope that someone like the Contis purchase the Houghton Mansion. I'm not saying that they're going to purchase the Houghton Mansion, because if you purchase this, you have to live there, and you have to.
Taxes alone.
You got to pay taxes. You got to spend a lot of money on it. So they have, and they've done a fantastic job. The goal is to eventually turn it into a bed and breakfast.
Good.
And hopefully open it up. They do have it open up for investigations, and I have gone there privately with my psychic friends to kind of explore the renovations. I'm friends with Mimi and Ken, who are doing the renovations. They're doing a wonderful job.
So is it open now for investigation?
It is, but you have to, there's rules. So you have to have, it's not just open to the public. You have to have insurance. There's other things that you have to be able to have an investigation. But yeah, there are groups that are doing investigations. And I have not worked with those groups, but I work with those groups, but not in that specific location.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it's kind of, right now it's still the third floor needs to be renovated. And so it's not necessarily safe for the public.
Roaming around.
Yeah.
Because you really do have to have insurance. People could get hurt.
Did you know Edwin and Lillian when they owned?
I was friendly with them on Facebook, but I kind of got into the picture right after they sold it.
Oh, afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, and this was, to me, at its worst state of disrepair, like right at the very end.
Oh yeah, it was.
They fled, and then Joni wrote the book about it. That's how I met Joni, really.
Really?
Was from that book.
That's
and
a great book too.
Making that connection to the S.K. Pierce Victoria Mansion in my dreams.
Yeah, and I met them a few times, and they're really nice people.
Yeah.
They went through hell in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hung on to that thing when it was just draining them dry. It cost so much money to maintain it. Excuse
Not only
me.
that, but everything that happened to them, and it wasn't
And there was no heat in the winter.
Wasn't there supposed to be something non-human in the basement?
Well, if you see the basement
quickly,
now,
because we're almost at the bottom of the hour.
yeah. Well, if you see the basement now, there was a cellar dweller. There's still a cellar dweller in the basement at the S.K. Pierce Victoria Mansion. They have cleared all the stuff out, but that's where things like there's a lot of sketchiness that happened in the basement. Let's put it that way.
And there's a big well there too, isn't there?
There is a big well.
A cistern of some
And
kind.
the cistern that's where they found the bones.
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're at the bottom of the hour, and you're watching Edge of Reality TV with our guest tonight, Sam Baltrusis, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Edge of Reality TV with, I'm Willie Hassell, along with Lynn Nickerson, and tonight's great guest is Sam Baltrusis, author of Most Haunted, not Most Haunted, 13 Most Haunted Crime Scenes, and 13 Most Haunted in Massachusetts, and I believe there's soon going to be a 13 Most Haunted Hotels in New England.
Yeah, I'm doing inns and hotels in New England.
Okay, I thought that was already out. That's coming out.
That's coming out, and that's been a lot of fun going to. Well, fun is sort of a subjective word.
Yeah, subjective
Yeah, because like some of the nights have been crazy, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of research, going to all the haunted inns and hotels throughout New England.
That's going to be fun, kind of.
Kind of,
Yeah, really.
Until it gets like really spooky, like that's when it's not so fun.
What would scare me is just being there by myself and being woken up in the middle of the night to see something, and that's when I think I would have a heart attack.
That happened to me at Captain Grant's Inn in Connecticut, and there was a little ghost girl by my bed
Really?
at like 3 in the morning.
What did you do?
Because I'm.
Well, what else would you do?
I'm
You're not
chicken.
real. You're not real.
Yeah, I'm chicken when it comes to the ghosts, believe it or not. Like I write about them and I go to the most haunted locations, but I was sitting there and there looked like a little girl by my bed. And what's weird is my shoes went missing. One of my shoes went missing, and I had a protection rock on that was given to me that went missing as well. So she has my protection rock.
She still does.
She probably still does.
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny. So was she translucent? Could you see?
She
right
was
through her?
translucent. Yeah, she had a bonnet on.
Oh.
I know that's weird, but
And she stared at you.
she looked at me, and then I looked down, and she was gone. I was like this.
Oh my
I was
gosh,
like,
what an
"Woo."
experience. Okay, well, the next story we wanted to touch on was Riverside Cemetery in Barre, Massachusetts. And this is one of the little towns where some of the people from Cold Springs, Massachusetts, were moved to when they were doing the Quabbin Reservoir project in the 1930s. So there's a couple of really sad stories in that cemetery. And one of them was the Naramore family, where Elizabeth, the mother, they were very poor, and they went to the town for help, and she also had an abusive husband.
Yeah.
And the town wanted to put the children in foster homes, and then...
Well, so Joni Mahan wrote that chapter in my book. We actually went together. I wanted an excuse.
Oh.
I wanted an excuse for me and Joni to go cemetery hunting and ghost hunting together. So we went out to that cemetery because she wrote about it before, and it was that the mother killed the children. And it's such a tragedy. When you go to that cemetery, you can feel the sadness.
You mentioned that.
And like just you can feel it was, and the grave has a lot of like makeshift like little dolls and little toys for the kids. I feel very drawn to the children's spirits and women. I have no idea why. Maybe because they feel comfortable with me, but I felt very connected to those children and the sadness there. I strongly believe that victims they don't necessarily stick around. So I'm hoping that the kids are not still there. But with the ghost kids, they don't always know how to cross. So that happens sometimes, and I think that's the case in the hotel where I saw a little ghost girl. They're not able to cross, and I come across that a lot. And then I'll reach out to someone like Joni who has experience with that sort of thing.
I think that's heartbreaking. These poor children are feeling lost, no parents, and they're still in that childhood state, and they're just lost. It's just, I think it's heartbreaking.
It is.
So the story is that rather than the children go to the foster homes, she decided they were better off dead.
Yeah,
That's
and she
horrible.
killed her children, and then she was not successful in killing herself because it was going to be a murder-suicide. And she lived her whole life with that lingering over her. And if anyone's going to haunt a location, it's going to be the mother who committed the murder.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Guilt, heavy guilt. Was she ever tried or convicted for that?
I don't know. I think that's in the story that Joni wrote, but I think that she lived her whole life with guilt. She would go back to the memorial. It was almost like it was lost in time, but there's the memorial there that I really strongly feel that maybe the mother's kind of lingering there, and there's other locations in that area that Joni says that the mother's energy is still there.
And the other family that you came across, and an equally sad tale, was the Captain Charles Sibley family. And I'm not sure why they gave him the title captain, but apparently he was in the service somewhere along the line. And they had like 4 children, and they lost one in like 1843, and then in 1847, the other 3 died all in the same year. And then 2 years later, the husband dies.
Yeah, just going to that cemetery and seeing that unfold with Joni, it was like you can feel the tragedy, and Joni had a very profound EVP session at that grave, and the gentleman said, "I think like I'm not worthy of going to heaven," or something similar to that.
Heaven won't take me.
Heaven won't take me, and. What's interesting about that, and like Joni and I talk about this too, like we've captured EVPs before, and then you play them, they're very profound, and then you play them a year later, and for whatever reason they fade.
Yeah.
Do you know why that happens?
I don't, unless the electronic whatever gets scrambled.
The sound actually fades?
The sound actually fades.
Yeah. Never noticed that.
It's happened to both Joni and myself,
Really?
and where we had a pretty strong EVP, and over time, and maybe they passed on, or maybe they
It might be.
yeah, or maybe they were able to cross over.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check some of my old EVPs.
Yeah. And you
See if
had
they're still there.
copies in different formats, right? Maybe from your recorder and then onto the computer.
Yeah, like with Joni specifically, I think she had it on her recorder and then she uploaded it to SoundCloud or one of the online sources. And it's weird, like when you first heard it, you could hear the pretty profoundly, like Class A, and then it went down to where it was just like mumbling at the very end. So kind of curious, like if that's a common phenomenon or not.
Yeah. But you went and revisited him. You tried to pass him on, didn't you?
No, that was Joni.
Oh, that was Joni doing
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah, that was Joni.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did she feel that she was successful doing
I
that?
think she was. I think the indication is in the EVP. We went
Good.
together as a group, and I felt very much like that. It's still very active, and I felt the
Yeah.
energy there. But Joni had that relationship with the Sibley family already established, and I felt like it was like her kind of reconnecting with the family, and I think that perhaps that he did cross over to the light.
I got the feeling that he had been heartbroken over his whole family disappearing, and
I think so too.
he
And
was. Oh, go ahead.
That's very common. It's very common
Yeah.
for people to stay behind because
Yeah.
that happened on the U.S. Salem. It happened in multiple locations where people stick around because if there's especially kids involved, they want to stay there for the kids.
Yeah,
and
they feel they
don't
want
cross
to
over.
protect them, and they failed in protecting them, even though it was beyond their control.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of guilt. Very sad. Okay.
Okay, the Houghton Mansion.
Yeah.
Houghton
Let's
Mansion.
talk a little bit about the Houghton Mansion.
Well, Houghton Mansion, as you probably know, it's up for sale. It was owned by the Masons for a while, and they're in the process of it's listed on Zillow and other
is it?
websites for a pretty reasonable price. But then you have taxes, you have the upkeep to it. So a lot of people that in the paranormal world have talked about perhaps purchasing it and having it open to investigations. I'm hoping that they can do that. And
You need a lot of revenue, though.
a lot of revenue, and I think if you want to open it up as a bed and breakfast, for example, you have to live there. There's like a lot of
Yeah.
weird rules to that. So I'm hoping it goes into hands that, like the Conti family who purchased the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion, will have enough revenue to be able, or enough capital to be able to invest in it and
Yeah.
keep it the historic haunt that it is.
Right, because that's another place that is in need of a lot of repair.
It is.
It's getting pretty run down.
Yeah, just hope that it doesn't meet with a wrecking ball,
Oh, I hope not.
I hope not. And like speaking of guilt, there's so much guilt there. Like when you walk into the Houghton Mansion, and like the who's the gentleman who killed his? Like it was a tragedy, and like the family died
Yeah.
tragically. And then there's Withers, who
Mr. Withers, yeah.
who was a
Withers.
carriage driver who had tremendous guilt, committed suicide. So there was this cursed family, and a lot of death that happened in a very short period of time. So when you walk into the Houghton Mansion, you feel sadness. You feel that it's still there, many years later. And I do feel, and I talked about this before, that there's a lot of rocks that are around the Houghton Mansion that were pulled from the Hoosick Tunnel.
Right.
The Bloody
Oh.
Pit. So
Yeah.
maybe it's related to the rocks too.
It could be.
It could be in a way, but
Rocks
I
retain
mean, the
energy.
tragedy of, the family having the car accident, and it was Houghton's daughter and her friend that were killed instantly.
And the
And
driver just felt
Mr.
terrible.
Withers, he committed suicide. It was, I think it was the same night, wasn't it?
It was within like 48
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah,
It was
very-
really
very
fast.
short.
And then, of course, Edward Houghton died about a week later.
Was that from his injuries?
Well, they said that he had life-threatening injuries, but rumor is that he died of a broken heart from losing his daughter.
I think it was a heart attack, so it was a broken heart. I mean, there was so much
Yeah.
sadness there.
There is.
And he was not as hurt as obviously as his daughter was in what happened.
Felt guilty about
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Survivor's guilt.
Kind of a strange, sort of an interesting fact at the family graveyard, the plot. The whole family is buried there at the Houghton plot, and Mr. Withers is also there.
Yeah.
But he's kind of off to the side in the back, like he's
No, there
part
really
of the
wasn't
family,
but
but not quite.
Not quite.
And do you think there was any resentment from Houghton? Do you have any idea on
No, I think it was
that?
part of the family, and I think that as indicated, he felt like he was part of the family, by the fact that he felt such extreme guilt
Yeah.
about the death. So I think that, I just think that was kind of how, I mean, the fact that he was buried in the plot
Yeah,
indicates that he was like a
Yeah.
family member.
yeah.
acceptance.
Yeah.
It is a very active place. I've been there several times.
Yeah.
No, I've understood that there's something up in the, like the Masonic Hall, the top floor. Is there something kind of heavy up there?
Well, some people say there's dark energy in
Yeah,
the
I've
whole
heard that.
place. I know a lot of reports are of doors closing, and I've witnessed that myself.
Yeah.
You're constantly hearing doors opening and closing when you know there's nobody. We even caught one on camera.
Well, that's not so negative though, but there's something
no,
that's
it isn't.
supposed to be heavy.
Yeah. We actually
up
even
there.
caught one on camera in, I believe it was Houghton's bedroom. But
With the door moving?
closing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like residual energy
Yeah.
there too. So there's like the residual hauntings that things kind of play over and over again, like someone walking into the door, opening, closing, and then walking in.
Yeah.
And that's something that repeats over and over and over again. And that could be related to the tragedy. I think, in fact, it probably is. And like it's still kind of lingering there, and it's like psychically imprinted itself on that location. But I think, yeah, there's another thing, like this is what I really, and I talked to Ron Kolick about this as well. I feel like when you have a location that has been investigated so much, like the Houghton Mansion or like the S. Keepers Victorian Mansion, that you're going to have people bring in their own stuff with them. So they bring in their ghosts, they bring in their issues, their demons, their their attachments. And I think that the Houghton Mansion, if you look at it when Ron first started investigating there versus now, it's like a, it's insane. It's like a attachment, swap, like attachments everywhere at the Houghton Mansion.
It's crowded now.
It's very crowded. It's like the ghost hotel, And I do feel like that when we have these places that are investigated, it's not the original ghost. So I think that some of the hauntings, I do think that Withers is still there. I think that, but there's other things there. There's like a child spirit there. There's something in the basement at the Houghton Mansion, another cellar dweller. And so I do think that maybe those things have been brought in from other groups.
Yeah. Actually, Ron was the first person to investigate there, wasn't he?
He always tells me that every time I talk to him. He reminds me.
He wants to make sure you know.
He's like, I was the first to investigate it. And I'm like, yes, Ron, we all know that.
And he was the one that discovered the little girl in the basement, Laura.
Yeah.
Which actually, Houghton had a daughter named Laura that died at like 3 years old, but they don't think it was her.
Yeah.
I think it was because there was actually, the mansion was built on a previous foundation. And I guess they believed that this Laura came from the previous home.
Okay.
And actually, I did get an EVP in the basement myself. It sounded to me, it was definitely female, but it sounded like a little girl. And it just said, hello.
That's cute.
Yeah.
It didn't say like,
all just,
get
hello.
out. I always get the get out, get out.
Yeah, I know.
I've gotten that too.
Get outs are too common.
Have you had any experiences yourself there, Sam?
At the Houghton, not like that. No, I mean, I think I'm chicken. So like if it's very, very active, I don't spend a lot of time there. So the ones that are my most haunted, the fact that I spend as much time as I have in the S. Keepers Victorian Mansion is a miracle, because I had to they had to kind of lure me, like, come on, Sam, come on to the basement, that I would never find myself in there.
If you're with Joni and a couple of others, it's not so bad.
Yeah, so I was with Joni. I was with like a group of like people to protect me.
Sure,
I had like a
that's the way
protection
to do it.
So I don't spend a lot of time. So the most haunted ones, I spend enough time to get what I need to get from it, and then I leave.
And no dreams about that place?
No dreams about that place.
Okay.
I felt the sadness. Like that, like with the Houghton Mansion, I heard stories of people like shaking hands with a girl ghost, and getting EVPs and doors opening and closing. And I just walked in, felt extremely sad, and I'm like, I'm leaving. Bye-bye. It was about an hour. It was not a lot of time, but I spent a lot of time outside because I just felt like I felt the energy was inside. So
the lodge hall, you can always kind of like sense movement.
Yeah.
All around the edges.
Didn't somebody record a piano too?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
That was you.
I was there one
tone
night,
on the
and
piano.
Yeah, I actually had gone to bed about 2 o'clock, but I couldn't sleep.
I wonder why.
My niece Laura, she was fast asleep in Mary's room. I was up in the lodge, and there was another team, but they were over in Mr. Witter's room. So it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I was in the lodge all by myself. And I didn't hear anything at the time, but when I played back the recording, there was definite
A note on the
piano key.
That's
And,
cool. That's,
you know, I mean, it wasn't a mouse or anything because I would have heard it at the
Yeah.
time, but I didn't hear it until later.
do you think it's residual? Like, what do you think the energy that is, or is it
don't-
intelligent?
I don't know what that would be. Did they have a piano there back in the day, I wonder?
They probably
you know?
did. And I think
when I heard it, I wasn't sure. I was thinking to myself, is there a piano in there? So
Yeah.
I went back and looked at pictures, and
There
yeah,
is,
there
right,
is. There
yeah.
is one right about 10 feet from where I was sitting.
Well, it
Wow.
doesn't have to be old residual. It could be something relatively contemporary.
That
you
is
know, past
true.
40, 50 years or something.
yeah.
Most interesting.
Okay.
Well, shall we move on to the Old Salem Jail? And I wanted to talk a little bit about that and the Howard Street Cemetery and then Giles Quarry. The jail was built, what, 1813, but the cemetery itself was built 1637, right? They started interring.
No, Howard Street Cemetery is not as old as that's not the oldest cemetery in Salem. Howard Street is right next to what is now Bit Bar Salem, which is a restaurant, and there's like posh condos. The cemetery I think you're thinking about is, that's the main cemetery in
And
downtown
I know which
Salem.
one that is, yeah.
Yep.
Well, maybe they had their facts wrong, but it did say 1637, and I thought that was kind of early for the Howard Street Cemetery.
Yeah, I think it was like 1800s Howard Street Cemetery.
Okay, because there was a Benjamin Roper that was buried there 1801, so it was probably before then, but I thought 1637 was early. But anyway, while the jail the building is still there, and there were all kinds of atrocities that went on there. They jailed women and children and men, and it was I think the only co-ed jail in the United States at the time.
Yep.
That's pretty bizarre.
It's bizarre, and it's like so much tragedy.
Yeah, send children to jail?
Yeah.
About 4-year-old that you happened to single out.
Well, I mean, it was right around the corner from the dungeon that they kept children in during the Salem witch trial, so it's not that surprising, I guess.
The
But
atrocities.
yeah. But there was a lot of deaths. So getting back to the Howard Street Cemetery, that is where Giles Corey was pressed to death.
Do you know where exactly?
I do, yeah. It's right. So maybe that field they may say it dates back to 1637 because it may have been like a burial ground of sorts for people.
Yeah, or
it was torture central. So like that area was where they kept people in. Like the crude contraptions designed by the Puritans. So the stockades, they would put women in like cages around their mouths, so they were gossiping. It was torture, like a lot of torture around there. And Giles was stripped naked, put a board on top of him, rocks on top of the board, and he remained mute because he didn't plead innocent or guilty to being a witch. So what's interesting about the jail, though, a lot of the deaths that happened in that jail were related to, like suffocation or being crushed.
being crushed.
Yeah, being crushed, which is so strange.
You said like 15% in that cemetery had been crushed, and that's how they died.
I know, and like looking at that percentage and looking at the people that died, it was like people, like buildings falling on top of them. It's like really bizarre deaths that you don't hear much of people being crushed.
One floor in the jail, wasn't it, gave in and killed 10 people and crushed them all.
Yeah.
It's just strange.
It's very strange, but Salem is strange. It's like
So what corner was it? If the jail is here, and of course you've got the cemetery, and then you've got a big vault heading over that way toward the highway.
Yeah.
Whereabouts was
It was in
Corey?
the back, so it was in the back right-hand corner.
Back of what? The jail?
Back of the
or-
jail. So the Bit Bar Salem, which is a restaurant now, and there's like the condos. So Bit Bar Salem is like where is where the restaurant was. The A&B Burgers was at one point. It's right in the very back of that on that side. So it was the closest to the jail.
Okay, so is that on one of your tours?
It is, but it's hard to go up there because like that cemetery. Salem is weird because you have to be. It's weird like with rules. So I would bring people on my tours all the way to the spot where he was pressed to death, but that's in a parking lot with a church. So I could. They put up signs.
Well, you could point to it.
Now I do. I'm like over there. Past the parking lot. But yeah, so the parking lot, you're actually able to get through the parking lot. That's private property. I will not go there again. So sorry that I did that. But they would put signs like Sam Baltrusis, you can't go in the parking lot with your tour. But you could actually, you get the spot right by where he was pressed to death on the tour, like I did before they almost arrested me for doing that. But Just kidding. Just kidding.
So how is that marked? Because now that it's a parking lot, I mean, how do they maintain knowledge of that being the spot?
Well, I love research. This is my favorite thing to do. 'Cause
Yeah.
I love visiting all these haunted locations, but there's a lot of people who are go through old maps and locations, and a lot of it is just proximity based on the maps and like where people describe what's around it. So
Yes.
that goes for Proctor's Ledge. That goes for because I was one of the first people to write about the Proctor's Ledge location, which has been later identified as the location where the executions took place in 1692. I went on record before other people did, saying that that's where we thought, as people of Salem tour guides, that the actual executions took place, and that's based on original documents and going through going through the material that we do know and cross-referencing it and then finding the location. So we know that the field where Giles Corey was pressed to death was Howard Street Cemetery. We know that for a fact, but where in that cemetery, they say it in the original documents. It was that it was close to Prisons Lane. So there was indications, but you had to do a lot of research to find that exact spot.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you mentioned the executions, but that was a different location.
That was a different
wasn't it?
location. So the pressing was in present day to Howard Street Cemetery. The executions, we thought for many years, was Gallows Hill. And Gallows Hill is close to where the actual executions took place, but the actual location is not very sexy. It's right behind a Walgreens. And so they're like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
the actual executions happened over there in the nice park. But truthfully, they happened behind the Walgreens.
So
you know where Gallows Hill actually is?
it's got the water tower, is that right?
Yeah, that's not right.
That's
You'll,
not
you'll
right.
have to
Yeah.
tell us afterwards,
Yeah.
because we've looked.
Yeah, we've looked for it.
Yeah, it's right. It's so go to the Walgreens and go in the back by the dumpsters. That's where the executions.
So it's not an actual
okay.
hill, is it?
No, it is a hill. Yeah,
It
so
is a hill.
it's right behind. So it's right off Boston Street.
Okay.
And also, what's interesting about Salem is, you know, the Elizabeth Montgomery, the bewitched statue.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so she's pointing her finger. She's pointing to where the gallows was.
Oh.
So follow Elizabeth Montgomery's finger.
Well, that's something that everybody probably wants to know, so they
Yeah.
can go and check it out for themselves.
Yeah, so if you want to find out where it actually is, but
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to tell you that that's where it is because they,
Well, general area.
yeah. So it's behind the Walgreens.
Yeah.
Okay, so there have been, what were you going to say? All right.
Go ahead. I
There
was
have been-
just going to say, just ask Elizabeth.
Oh, yes, Elizabeth. She's not around either now. She's gone. There have been sightings of Giles Corey. There we go, tongue twister. And there are a couple of things that happen. And if you see him, it's supposed to foretell a fire in Salem. Or if he speaks to you, it's a death sentence.
Yeah, so when I first heard the Giles Corey, because when you come in as a tour guide, they're like, they tell you all these like kind of goofy stories. Like, and they're like, yeah, and the Giles Corey curse. And I kind of laughed at the idea of like a Giles Corey curse. And some of the other things I kind of laughed at too. I was like, Salem really does have darkness there. And there's a lot of, the ghosts are really there. So the Giles Corey curse is if you see him, Salem will burn. And that actually has happened multiple times. Where
Now
he's
that's kind of phenomenal.
So yeah, I mean, like the Giles Corey curse is
Real.
definitely real. And when I say real, like I haven't seen him, so I have not had my Giles Corey sighting at all. But
Well, the evidence is there, right in print. So
yeah, and Nathaniel
Truly.
Hawthorne, he had a sighting of him as well. He's the one that
That's
first
right.
started that rumor that if you see Giles, then the city will burn. And the legend is that Giles Corey was the Sheriff George Corwin, who was the hated sadistic man that was responsible for the actual execution portion. Supposedly Giles Corey cursed George Corwin and cursed the city of Salem. And I've gone there recently with Amy and Adam from Kindred Spirits, and then my friend Colleen Costello, who's a psychic, and she and I went together, and she's like, stay away from Giles, because she felt the energy of Giles. We also connected really strongly with Bridget Bishop, and she was the first woman to be executed and the only one to be executed by herself. And she was presented to pop culture as kind of like a loose woman wearing red clothes, a tavern owner. And I found out over time that she didn't own a tavern. Her portrayal of pop culture has been misrepresented. She was just sort of a miserly, kind of cranky old woman who who
She'd been married 3 times, and her first and second husband died, and the children from the first marriage died.
yeah, she had a sketchy past.
Yeah, it's
she
kind
had
of
a very sketchy
questionable.
past, and so she also was accused of witchcraft 10 years before her execution. So she's not an innocent woman.
No,
And
no.
I, having connected with her spirit, like there was a situation where an apple rolled mysteriously, because I said it was her tavern.
That's right.
And this really did happen. I was on a tour and an apple rolled mysteriously out from the corner to let me know that it was her apple orchard, not her tavern. And I went back with Colleen to the location where that happened. And Colleen's like, come over here, Sam. And she's Irish. She's like, come over here. And she brought me over there, and then Bridget Bishop apologized to me. According to Colleen, there was a
Really?
there was a, yeah. So there was a, not an EVP, but a Ovilus, and I'm like, and Colleen's like, maybe you should apologize to Bridget. I'm like, no, Bridget needs to apologize to me because she scared me. And then right on the Ovilus it said sorry.
No kidding.
Yeah. And it was pretty cool.
Oh my
So Bridget
gosh.
Bishop apologized to me. So I accept your apology, Bridget Bishop.
But Salem is dark. That's the
It
bottom
is.
line. And you also mentioned something about that there's a lot of, I don't know, magnetic or electrical force under the town, and it interferes with cell phones or batteries? Well,
Yeah,
what
your
is
batteries
this?
get drained. Like I get drained. I mean, like when I spend time, I had an office there. I ended up writing my book, Goes to Salem, in a Dunkin' Donuts because I couldn't. I would go there and I would just I would feel so drained.
Dunkin' Donuts, that's
Drink
our
the
office too,
coffee
isn't
and-
Yeah,
But it is a place of creativity, isn't it?
it is. But I had an office and I had a really nice space to write the book, and I just couldn't do it because my batteries would drain, my computer would drain, I would drain. So I just ended up. I don't spend a lot of time there. I work in Salem. I give tours in Salem, but I like to go there and then leave
And get out, yeah.
Yeah, so I can use my phone because every time I go there, my phone gets drained.
That
So.
is odd. But other people have complained of this too, haven't they?
It's across the board. Like people come there and they're shocked that their phones, and then when they leave Salem, their phone magically goes. Their bars go back up on their phone, which is even more strange.
Boy, that is bizarre.
Yeah. So the theory is that there's ley lines, that there's
Could be.
It's in the land.
Well, the Native Americans considered it sacred land. They couldn't understand why Whitey wanted to live there.
Yeah. It's
We only got about 5 minutes left.
Oh, no.
And I know you wanted to talk about the USS Salem. So.
all right. So I love the USS Salem. It's also in disrepair as well, and if anything I can do to help it, but it was in 2 of my 13 Most Haunted books. My first one, 13 Most Haunted Massachusetts, and then 13 Most Haunted Crime Scenes. And I spent all last season working on a haunted attraction on the USS Salem there. And I have an upcoming investigation event as well.
Good.
And so it's one of those things that I am going back after a pretty traumatic season of going there every night.
Wow.
I have that recurring in my past where I fled Salem and I kind of inched back to Salem, and I feel that way about the USS Salem as well. I literally left the USS Salem just drained and mortified of the experiences that I had. And I think that
Is that still in Quincy now, or has it been moved?
it's still in Quincy. There were at the time there were talks. They've talked about moving it left and right, but
Yeah.
there was talks of moving the USS Salem to Fall River. There's all talks of moving it to East Boston, but it's moving. It's staying in Quincy, and which is good. And I think that it just may change to a different location. It may go to a different dock. It's still in disrepair, and I think that the haunted attraction that I worked on last season did bring a lot of money to it. But it still needs a lot of money because it's a nonprofit to be able to stay afloat.
Yeah.
So I am hopefully going to, I don't know, we'll see what happens with the USS Salem. I would love to do something to help it from a financial perspective.
Sure. Do you suppose, though, that you've got some kind of a past life connection to it? Do you feel that?
Okay, so I feel that way about Salem.
You do?
I feel that the USS Salem is related to my family. So I come from a naval family, so I feel anything boat related, like the tall ships were in Boston, and I was like all over it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I love the vessels. I love the USS Salem. I think it's just the Navy past that maybe it's my grandfather connecting to it. So I think that maybe I'm connected through my grandfather.
So what happened there? Can you tell us a real
All right, so
quick
a
summary?
lot happened. And so Ron Kolick, speaking of Ron, was there, and then the ghost acted on command. Like we
Really?
heard a female scream. We heard curtains were falling. It was like the scene from the Poltergeist, like from a movie. Like things are like flying like everywhere. And Ron's like thought it was part of the haunted attraction, and it was not.
Oh my gosh.
It was crazy. We heard a screaming. We heard all sorts of things. So that progressed as the hauntings progressed as the seasons progressed. So there was a haunted attraction on the vessel, but it happened just on the weekend. So when Ron visited, it was on a Monday. So there was no hauntings going on.
Nobody there to reenact.
And so saw Ghost Kids, saw the Burning Man. The Burning Man is a negative entity that's on the vessel. There's a lot of energy there that's related to the Ionian earthquake of 1953. So it was used as a triage unit, and it never saw battle, but it did see a lot of death.
It's a lot of action. I was just going to ask you now. Oh, did Maureen go with Ron, or was he with you? Was
No,
she with you
Ann
guys?
Kerrigan. It was.
Oh, Ann Kerrigan, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it was Ann and Ron. For their
she's
show.
She's really good with the gravestone iconography.
Yeah.
Gravestones, pictures, and so forth. Yeah, she's very good. Ann Kerrigan. So, anything else you can squeeze in?
Yeah, so I hopefully, because I'm opening up a bookstore, so hopefully you guys can come on down in Somerville and.
Oh, we're going to come down and see it.
Yeah, I would love to have you guys there.
Definitely.
Yeah, we will definitely come down and visit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be speaking at the library in Haverhill, so I'd love for you guys to be at that. That's April 3rd.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Tuesday, April 3rd, I'm going to be speaking at the Haverhill Public Library.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well,
All right.
we're going to be there if we
April
can.
3rd.
April 3rd.
Oh,
April
no,
3rd?
October 3rd. Did I say
October
April?
3rd, that's
October
better.
3rd. Yeah.
I was thinking it's either next year or you're late.
Yeah.
October 3rd, okay. Yeah. Well, we'll
So-
definitely have to check that out.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure meeting you guys in person.
Oh, it's fun. We had so much fun
Pleasure
on this
meeting you too,
dirt
Sam.
radio.
And we thank you very much for coming all the way up here from Somerville
Real pleasure.
just to talk with us.
So can you give us your website? Do you
Sure,
have
my
one?
website is 13mosthaunted.com, so number 13mosthaunted.com. And I also, for regards to the documentaries, it's New England/haunted, New England/haunts.com. That's my new website for the documentaries that I'm working on.
And as far as your tours are concerned, they'll find information there
Yeah,
about the
so
tours?
so ghosttosalem.com is my Salem tour, and then bostonhaunts.com is my Boston tour. So I have all these websites. Go to 13mosthaunted.com and they'll have pretty much everything there.
Wonderful.
Yep.
You're a busy guy, you know that?
I really am busy. And it's all ghost related.
We're glad you could
It's
squeeze us
busy and
in.
it's all good.
Yes.
All right, well, Sam, we thank you very much,
Thank you very much, Sam.
for joining us tonight. And that is Edge of Reality TV, and we will talk to you again next month.
Thank you for watching.